the discussion of Jesus's priesthood, especially, let's start in Hebrews chapter 7. You have, now my understanding of the book of Hebrews is that it's an apologetic work that is seeking to convince the Jewish believer in Jesus there's nothing to go back to. They're under tremendous pressure. You know about how in the early church, tremendous pressure being placed upon them to go back, offer sacrifice, curse the name of Jesus. I think this was the great sin that 1 John talks about, trampling underfoot the blood of the Son of God, et cetera, et cetera. Tremendous pressure. And I see it all the way through chapter 11 as one long apologetic saying there's nothing to go back to. He is the fulfillment of all these things. He's greater than Aaron. He's the great high priest. There's nothing to go back to. And if we had just listened to the scriptures, we would see these things all along. And so with that, when I look at what Hebrews says about what Jesus accomplishes, I see a huge connection between what's in Hebrews chapters 7 through 10 especially, and that signal passage in Romans chapter 8, not just the golden chain of redemption, but what comes immediately afterwards, which I think, in my perspective, is absolutely in perfect harmony with a recognition of the existence of an elect people and the perfection of the work in their behalf. So, Hebrews 7:23, the former priests on the one hand existed in greater numbers because they were prevented by death from continuing, but Jesus, on the other hand, because he continues forever, holds his priesthood permanently or without successor, and therefore, because of his indestructible life, he is able also to save to the uttermost or forever, again, the term can be translated either way, those who draw near to God through him. Why? And here's what didn't come out in the debate. Since he always lives to make intercession for them. This to me, Michael, is what I didn't hear discussed and what I'd like to discuss. And that is your understanding of the nature of the intercessory work of Christ in comparison to or in connection with his role as the high priest. Because it seems to me that when and we could go to Hebrews 9, but I'm just going to put these two together for right now. We can expand on it if you want to. But there is an assertion made in verse 25. And I will use a Greek term here, dunatai. He is dunatai. He is able. Now, that term is the very same term that's used so often about what man is not capable of doing. Man is not able to come to Christ unless drawn by the Father, and not able to submit himself to the law of God. But in John 6:39, here in Hebrews 7:24, Jesus is said to be able to do something perfectly in and of himself because of the nature of who he is, in contrast to the old priests who, because they did not have continuation of life, were not able to accomplish the full salvation of those for whom they interceded. The high priest, he goes into the holy place, but then he has to leave. There's no place for him to sit down. There is no offering that he can offer that would actually allow him to stay there. But Jesus enters into that holy place, and he sits down at the right hand of the throne of God. His enemies are made footstool for his feet. Why? Because of who he is and what he's accomplished. And so the nature of the intercessory work and how it relates to the sacrifice is, for me, the strongest biblical argument for particular redemption, because it emphasizes Christ's ability to save, and that intercessory work can only be based upon the completed sacrifice. And if I just mentioned it in passing, but and I'll close with this, and we can start discussing it. But the connection that I see here, and this is one of the reasons I don't know what your theory on the authorship of Hebrews is, but you may find this interesting. I'm not sure if we've ever discussed it, but I think that Hebrews is a sermon by Paul that was originally preached in Hebrew or Aramaic, and it was meant to encourage Jewish Christians. And maybe Luke just came along and said, I think other people need to hear that, or Paul said, I want you to write this down, one way or the other. I think it was written by Luke, because the style is Luke and the theology is Paul. And so that's why I see the connection between the assertion in Hebrews 7 that Jesus is able to save because he always lives to make intercession, that intercession therefore being connected to his sacrifice. And the words of Paul in Romans 8, what then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who is against us? He who did not spare his own son, but delivered him over for us all. Who's the us? How will he not also with him freely give us all things? Whoever the us is, they're given all things. And then it's defined for us in verse 33. Who will bring a charge against who? God's elect. God is the one who justifies. Who is the one who condemns? Christ Jesus, he who died, there's the sacrifice, yes, rather who was raised, and here it is, who is at the right hand of God, who also intercedes for us. There, to me, is, in the words of Scripture, this exalted recognition of the intimate, unbreakable relationship between the sacrifice and intercession. Because as you know, the high priest, he offers the sacrifice, but he's not done. He then takes that blood and sprinkles the hilasterion, the place of mercy. And that intercessory act in the holy place has to take place. And that's what Jesus has done, except he's now the hilasterion himself. He has become the mercy seat in the presence of the Father, so that the Father can look upon us. We are in him, therefore we have his righteousness, therefore we have peace with God. It's all one awesomely beautiful reality, but it doesn't make any sense to me, if the intercession becomes separated from the sacrifice. And I don't see how a universal atonement perspective can avoid separating the intercession from the sacrifice. Okay? So, now would you agree that that wasn't what came up in the debate?
Yeah, absolutely. Was not a focus of Dr. Hernandez in the debate, for sure.
Okay.
I imagine he'd agree with your point, but wasn't a focus.
I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure about that 100%, but I don't know. So, but you go ahead.
So let me respond in large print and then in small. As for Jesus dying for the elect, yes, he did. I say he didn't only die for the elect, but of course he died for the elect. That we agree. I could pay for your meal and the meal of 5 other people at other tables. When I say I covered you, I paid for you, doesn't mean I didn't pay for anyone else. I mean that's self-evident. But if I look at Hebrews on a larger level, from the same viewpoint that you're talking about, what can I learn? When I learned, for example, in Hebrews 2:9 that Jesus tasted death for every, the Greek is quite wide there, it seems to be all humanity based on the context, but then more specifically, Israel's constantly being used. Now, this was the Israel for whom atonement was made every year for the entire nation, that God keeps saying that they all had the opportunity, but then they harden their heart. And make sure you don't do the same. Now, you don't harden your heart. You don't harden your heart. You don't harden your heart, which means I have the capability of hardening my heart. Hence, I'm being warned. So I'm warned in the 2nd chapter not to drift. I'm warned in the 3rd chapter not to allow hardness of heart to come in. In the 4th chapter, it says something very interesting, that all Israel received the good news, but not all made it. So once again, there's that same thing, just like the love of God being extended towards all, just like atonement being made for the whole nation every year on the Day of Atonement, but not all receive that. So I look at that as part of the consistent pattern here, hence the constant warnings, because there's the genuine possibility of falling away, whereas you holding to perseverance of the saints say, actually, it's not possible, it is utterly impossible for anyone who's truly elect to ultimately fall away. So although these warnings serve as a purpose, God uses the warnings to keep us from falling away. it's actually impossible for us to fall away. Hence, the warnings are real only in a sense. And we have the warnings repeated again, even if we leave out Hebrews 6:4-6, repeated again in the 10th chapter, repeated again in the 12th chapter. I take them as very real warnings. So how do I understand Hebrews 7:25? Well, Jesus is interceding for who? Those who draw near to God through him. Now, you can, if you want to parse the Greek here, prosikomenos in 7:25, but it is not saying, it is not passive, those who have been drawn, but those who draw near or come near. Every translation seems to understand it that way. So there's the human responsibility, human participation, responding to the gospel, not hardening our hearts, coming to him. So he's interceding for us who are saved. It doesn't say he's interceding for the lost, whether he is or not, God knows, but he is interceding for the saved. And I have abundant promises in Scripture that he will keep us, that he who began the good work will bring it to completion, that his work will be utterly perfect, and that he has the ability, right? That's what it says. He is able to save us to the uttermost. So we have to be those who draw near to him. There's that condition. And then Hebrews has already told us in the 2nd chapter, the 3rd chapter, the 4th chapter, then in the 10th and the 12th, that it's those who persevere to the end. So he is praying for our perseverance, but he's not forcing us to stay in the house. He will absolutely keep us, but he's not forcing anyone to stay in his family, to stay in the house. And the example of Israel is that even though the nation as a whole was chosen by God and called his son, B'ni B'chori Israel, I'm not putting that to parse it just because I love the Hebrew. Israel's my son, my firstborn.
I had actually, Mike, I wish you had actually broken into some Hebrew during the debate, just simply for I don't know, just to make it more fun.
I know.
Yeah. Why didn't you do that? I mean, it's like, come on.
I was tempted to do it more actually, but in any case, so Israel's my son, my firstborn. God says it about the nation as a whole, even though he says disobedient, rebellious, etc. So here we have the whole nation redeemed by God's love, called out by God's love, the same acts of redemption performed for the nation as a whole, the same sacrifices performed for the nation as a whole, but many turned away. Many that were of that nation turned away and didn't follow. So it's the same with us. I also see in terms of the intercession of Jesus that there is our participation. The prayer of Jesus in John 17 for the unity of the body is one that has still not been answered. That means generation in, generation out. It is in the process of being answered, but it's still not been fully answered. So Jesus interceding for us, he is perfect in his intercession, and there's no excuse ever for me to fall away except my choice, my rebellion, my sin, because he absolutely has the power to keep me through the end. Hence the warnings, don't play games with this, don't depart. So there's nothing that I always use the analogy of the plane. I get on the plane and I don't have the power to go across the ocean, whatever. All I have to do is just sit on that plane. And when I wake up or stop reading or whatever, I'll be in another country. However, I do have the power. I could open an emergency door and jump out. So I see it the same way. I don't see anywhere where Scripture says I'm unable to apostatize, but I do see God is perfect in his power to keep.